empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? 4 to 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Tuesday night. We are on the grind. There is a lot of big news coming out of the Woody Hayes and out of the recruiting world. Ohio State is finishing up their week of spring ball. We have a little bit of intel on that. Spring ball is on and popping next week. They're going to knock some of the rust off before they take a little break and go on spring break. They're going to knock out all of their non-padded practices before they head out for a week. And then once they get back from spring break, it is fully padded, physical work expected. So that's when it really becomes nut cutting time, so to speak. Really excited about what's going on. We are going to break down the number one junior in America. He is a humongous prospect, 6'6", offensive tackle, pure left tackle, a guy that we desperately need, and a guy that is coming up to Ohio State for our spring game weekend, which just so happens to be the weekend that most schools are having their spring game. So that weekend he will be in Columbus, and we need 100,000 people to show up. We need nice weather. We need to have a big game, and we need Ryan Day and Justin Fry to make a huge impression on this young man. So this will be a huge, huge deal. He has the longest highlight tape I've ever seen, so we're going to dive into that and break some of that down for you guys tonight. We're also going to take your questions. So as always, thank you guys so much. We love you guys tuning in live. Again, if you enjoy our live shows, click that alert on our page. You'll get a little notification when we go live on your phone, on your iPad, on your TV, whatever you guys like to watch us on. I have a lot of people that are on their smart TVs right now watching this, so we appreciate you guys giving us the feedback that you guys like to watch it on your TV set. I love that. If you enjoy this content, click like. The likes are huge for us. You guys don't realize how much that helps our videos. So liking, commenting, who is the guy that you want most in the 2024 class? And this is going to be a 2025. I can't believe I'm already saying 2025, but that is where we are at in recruiting. So and comment where you're from. Shout out where you're from in the comments down below. I love when you guys do that. As always, that is always super cool to see where you guys are watching from. Again, a lot of Florida, a lot of Ohio, a lot of California, Missouri, Chicagoland area, New York, and then other countries. So it's been really cool. So appreciate you guys doing that as always. We're gonna dig into this one. I think you guys are gonna love this episode. So keep it locked right here. Gonna bring in my good friend Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Good, man. Not every day we're talking about the number one offensive tackle in the country and visiting Ohio State. It's a good day. It was a good day, and that became a really good day. So very excited about that, and just a few days to start of spring football as well. So lots to be thankful for today, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna get into some David Sanders in a second. He is a freaky kid. He is a giant kid. He was at the Under Armour Combine at this past weekend. He just stands out because he's so big, he's so fluid, super lean, no fat on this kid, being as tall as he is, as angular as he is. Once he fills out and really hits the weight room, I think he's really going to be just a tremendous player. He's got a lot of upside, and it's going to be really exciting to see what he does. Nevada, of all the tackles that we've recruited over the years, who were some of the guys that you thought were the surest things and some of the guys that you thought would be early starters and big-time contributors at Ohio State?
Well, the offensive line position's always been the toughest to project, and I think I've probably been the most wrong about some of the kids. I mean, we've talked about Connor Smith, a kid that I was convinced was going to be not only a good player in college, but I thought he'd be a terrific player in the NFL, and it never really amounted to anything. And there's other kids that I just did not understand the offers, or at the time the offers were much panned. And Darryl Baldwin. I mean, the fact that Darryl Baldwin was a starter on our national championship team is still one of the most stunning things I've ever seen, because it's just that was he was recruited as a defensive player, a 3-star defensive player. Nobody wanted him. The fans hated him, and he ends up starting on our national championship team. So, hey, offensive line's tough to project, but 5 stars are 5 stars, and they don't come along every day. And I have an idea for what Ohio State could do to close the deal with him at the spring game on August 14th and 15th. Bring in Coach Stud to be the closer. I'm thinking Coach Stud, he closed 5 stars in five straight recruiting cycles, and Ohio State, since he's left, has been unable to get it done. So why not bring him back? Bring him back as a special just for that one weekend, and let him do his match, let him do the stud magic, and bring this guy home. So it's just an idea. I'm just going to float it out there. And I know the Ohio State people listen to these podcasts every day. So jot this one down. Nevada Buck says, roll in Coach Stud, bad back and all. Let him close the deal on April 14th, and let's get her done.
Should we build a statue of Stud? I mean, it'd probably take a lot of bronze to make his body, but I think that'd be kind of hilarious given how many 5-stars he closed over the years. Man, I didn't know that was the turn we were going to take this early in the podcast, but that's pretty fantastic. In all seriousness, we did have a pretty amazing run of 5-stars for a hot minute, starting with, we had Nick Petit-Frere, we had Harriet Miller, Paris, Donnie Jackson. And the thing is if you look at these recruiting rankings, there aren't many 5-stars. So it's not like there's 15 a class. There's like 4 in the entire country. And you got to beat Bama, Georgia, Clemson. You got to beat the big dogs for the 5-stars. So it's tough. And most of them are in the South. I mean, Paris is the only kid that was an Ohio 5-star. And everybody else we had to go get Harry out of Georgia. We had to go get Nick Petit out of Tampa. We had to go get Donnie out of Texas. So those are fist fights, man. Those are tough wins. And when you win, you got to celebrate. I mean, I think the only 5-star offensive lineman that I played with was Booney. Alex is a 5-star kid from St. Ed's. And I don't know if he finished as a 5-star. I think he might have been a 5-star at the end. But, he was a guy that was easily the most heralded guy I played with. And, there's just not a lot of them on the earth. I mean, even this David Sanders kid, according to Rivals, is a 4-star, but he's the number 1 player in the country. So that might be a little low, and they might be adjusting it. So it's going to be interesting. But yeah, this is going to be a guy that it's funny. People are saying offer him money. I was like, yeah, I don't know if this guy's an NIL kid or not, but if there's ever a guy that I'd give money to, it'd be this one. So we're going to get into some of his tape because this is this is like a 16-minute highlight reel. Most of these highlight tapes that we watch are about 4 or 5 minutes. Kid was all state. Obviously, he's from North Carolina, so that's not the same as being all state in Georgia or Texas or Florida. But, you can see his fluidity. He's the backside tackle. Here's playing left tackle. Teams love running this counter play, where you pull both. You pull the guard kicks out, the tackle walls around. And again, like it's funny because the end, he wrong arms down inside, so there really isn't anybody for him. So he gets hooked right away, and he's just kind of out on easy street, and I think he just kills this guy. Yeah, he gets a hold of him, pancakes him. Again, this is, when you're a linebacker and this guy locks onto you, because the advantage of being 6'6" is your arms are just so long that once you get a lockout on this kid, it's basically curtains. But this is, for a young kid, a light kid, he's probably 245-ish, maybe. 250. I mean, he's really, like, you can see how lean he is playing left tackle. Like, he looks like a small forward on a basketball team, but he loves to put guys in the dirt, which is great, or the AstroTurf, as you can see there. But super light on his feet. Nevada, we're 3 plays in. Is he a taker? Do we need to get Stud out of retirement to bring him into the fold?
Yeah, no, he looks like a good one. I mean, he looks like a good one. He's got that nasty in him. And like you said, you can see this kid going to be playing in the future. 295, 300, 305, and he's still going to look pretty slight in that. He's got that nice big frame. So yeah, I'll say this: a sophomore in North Carolina football is not bad, and that's really saying something. The kid's special and really likes Ohio State. So this is one that we definitely going to be keeping an eye on here for the next 15 months for sure.
Yeah, he's probably the best mover I've seen at tackle. Now, granted, he's really light. He's more kind of like a big tight end running around out here, but he is ultra fluid. Like, you just see how he releases on this. This is just a little tunnel screen here, and obviously I think that, his team is much better, but, he releases flat. There's really nobody home here. I mean, there's 2 guys on one, and he puts his guy in the dirt right here. And again, that's the thing is, like, his highlight film is long, and so far every single play he's putting guys in the ground, which is great, especially as lean and small as he is, and the fact that he's a true sophomore doing this. Like, what's he going to be like this year when he's probably going to be 275? You know, I mean, it's going to be scary to see how good he gets when he adds some muscle. Again, you know, he's just a lean guy, and again, I don't know. You know, I mean, I don't know how good the competition is because, yeah, but he gets under this guy, man, and he's putting these guys in the dirt. You know, I mean, a guy that's this good, I'd even let him wear a hand towel, even though he's a tackle. Like, you know, tackles don't really need to wear hand towels; they just kind of do that for swag. But I wouldn't let my tackle wear one unless he was this good. But he puts them right in the dirt. And again, like you love these guys that are this athletic, but they're also nasty because he loves to finish. He's a really good puller too. I mean, on the backside when you run these little tackle dart plays, is this a full counter? Is there a guard coming too? Looks like the guard's coming too. They like running this counter play where they've got guard pull and kick, and then you've got the tackle, kind of wrapping around for whatever's left, and you know that's really tough to do when the guy. And again, he's like these guys is like a cheat code. I mean, that's like that's like his version of the Heisman pose. Is like he's burying the guy. The guy's heels are up in the air like this, and he's just planting the dude in the ground. I mean, it's almost kind of funny how many plays there are where he gets those kill shots in on these guys. Yeah, I was watching. It's funny. Something I think I'm going to do is I'm going to bring back some tape of some of the best guys I evaluated or some of the best films I've seen because I still think the best tackle film I've seen was Tunsil, Laramie Tunsil. He went to Ole Miss. Obviously, he's the gas mask guy, and he was the number one player in the country the year he came up. But I remember watching his tape, and I was like, yeah, this guy's going to be just an automatic first round pick, number one overall pick. And you know, he was like Clowney. Those are like two guys that you watch them one time, and you're like, these guys. I mean, unless they blow out both their ACLs twice, they're going to be top 5 picks. And you know, Tunsil should have been the first pick in that draft. He ended up being, I think, like 8 or 9. He slid down to Tennessee, and somehow Jack Conklin went ahead of him, which is insane. But it is what it is. But yeah, I love this kid's film. He is coming up for the spring game weekend, which I thought was really notable because most of the good programs have their spring game on April 15th. And the reason that they do that is because that next day, not the 15th, 16th, the 17th, I believe, is the first day that you're allowed to be on the road as a coaching staff for recruiting. So like USC announced they're on the 15th. Most of these schools are going to be on the 15th or earlier. Because if you do it on the 23rd, the following Saturday, you literally miss an entire week of recruiting. So, you know, you want to be the first guys out on the road. If you're going to see a kid like this, you know, if you're Justin Fry, you want to be at this kid's high school Monday morning at 7 a.m. on the first day, just so you can say, hey, I came and saw you first. And, you know, you want to send Ryan Day down to see, you know, some of these really good kids in North Carolina and Georgia, just so you can make the inroads. Nevada, who are some of the best recruits that you've seen on tape, or some of the guys you remember through the years? I mean, because I know sometimes people like going down memory lane and seeing some of the good guys. Was that that's your critic?
That was Kirby. That was Kirby. Kirby says hello. Kirby says hello.
Kirby, I love it. Named after the late great Kirby Puckett.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Who are some of the guys that you've seen and evaluated over the years that you just knew were going to be surefire stars?
Well, like, you know, it's funny because I like to talk about some of the kids that left Ohio, like Jackson Carman. I'll talk about Jackson Carman. Was kind of an interesting one because, you know, I just never really saw it with him. You know, like I thought he was okay in high school. I thought he was okay in college, and then in the pros, like sometimes he has some good games, sometimes he has some bad games. But that's an example where it's just so hard to tell with the bigs. You know, you don't know with these big guys because, you know, a lot of times you're watching, you know, like we're watching this tape right now, he's literally a head taller than all these kids he's playing against right now. And so the question is, when he gets up against a defensive end who's 6'6", you know, 250 pounds and can run like a deer, can he still do the same? I'm going to put you on your butt and run you off the field, a la Michael Orr in the Blind Side. So, you know, it's so hard. But, you know, some of the you know, I like some of the great high school tapes of kids. You go back there, and, you know, one of your favorite kids, the kid that you loved to death, is Seantrell Henderson. I liked watching his highlight tape. It had a great soundtrack to it. It had sound effects. It had little graphics and little bombs and booms and stuff like that in it. And that was one of my favorites of all time. You have a few minutes, go back and find the Chantrell Henderson highlight tape, and that was quite a highlight tape.
He was blocking a bunch of little hockey players in Minnesota. It was hilarious. I was like, this guy's like 6'8", and I think Tom Lemming had the greatest line ever. He said like he's a combination of if you could splice or mix like Jonathan Ogden and Orlando Pace together, you'd get Chantrell Henderson. And I was like, are you serious with that? Like, how could you ever say that about a kid who's 17? Like, you take the two greatest tackles that ever lived, and then you get Chantrell. I'm like, and the kid shows up. He's a turd. I remember he was on Miami in 2010 because he went to SC. They got hit with the death penalty. Pete Carroll hit the golden parachute on out of town. And then I remember he transferred to Miami immediately because when we played the Hurricanes in the shoe in 2010, and I remember seeing him, and he's big, but he had like this big fat dumpy body and this big like dopey face, and I was like, is that guy really going to be that good? And then he ends up like being a rotational guy his last year at Miami, and he just doesn't ever really do anything. He got drafted in the NFL like the 6th or 7th round late just because of his size and because of his upside from high school. I think there's some guys that get drafted because they were phenoms in high school and they try to make him into NFL guys, but he didn't have it. And it was just one of those weird things where, sometimes when some of these guys are just big time prima donnas, especially when they're big guys, like when they're offensive linemen, it like never works. There's always going to be like a big question mark, or for whatever reason, like I've seen this movie before and I'm just not a fan of it. And again, maybe I'm just boring and old and whatever, but I genuinely think when these guys like Hal Dotson, like nice kid, but he did like this big commitment ceremony and a big song and whatever, and like and Taylor Decker just like quietly committed, flipped from Notre Dame, no big press conference, no big ballyhooed thing, and Taylor came in day one, was a worker bee, graduated early, was straight business. We're switching over to defense now for our dude.
Now wait a second. I just want to say one thing though. It's when Kyle Dotson committed to Ohio State. How excited was Urban Meyer about that one? I mean, Urban Meyer.
Oh God, it was almost comical.
I mean, he was over the moon excited. You're talking about Urban Meyer. I mean, like Urban Meyer, hate Urban Meyer, whatever. I mean, Urban Meyer is on the Mount Rushmore of great coaches. Clearly, maybe the greatest recruiter that's ever walked the sidelines. If not, he's definitely in the top 3 or 4. And he was over the moon about getting Kyle Dotson, and Kyle Dotson couldn't play. So it just goes to show you how tough this is for evaluators, for coaches, for fans, for anybody to pick this stuff up. And at the end of the day, all you're really left with on any of this stuff is how well do people play? How well do they play once they get, or how do they develop? Because man, projecting is hard. If Urban Meyer can miss that bad, then you and I can miss that bad, and not feel terrible about it.
Yeah, this is an incredible play right here. Yeah, this is a rare bird right here. This is an offensive tackle. He's playing D end here, and he picks off the screen pass and runs it back to the crib. Does he get it all the way back to the crib? Please tell me he outruns all these little guys. Does he outrun the quarterback? Oh, they get him at the 5. Yeah, this is a special dude, man. I like watching his tape. But no, like again, I totally can be wrong on guys too. Like, I thought Kyle Kalis was going to be a lot better than he ended up being. He was a guy that was a nice player at Michigan, but he didn't get drafted, had a short NFL career. I thought Taylor would be good. I wasn't sure if he was first round good, but I knew that he'd be a really good, like I thought he'd be an all Big Ten player. With that could hit All-American. He did hit All-American, hit it first round. I thought Elflein would be really good. So again, it's some of these kids, they just got it. And a lot of it happens kind of in the fires of late season, late practices where, Urban, we kind of scrimmaged the young guys at the end of practice. All the good guys go in, and when we'd have our full pad days, we'd keep the young guys out and do some one-on-one drills where it'd be like live blocking Pat Elflein versus Chris Carter. Chris Carter weighed 380 pounds and Pat was probably 285. And Pat would get his hands in and just dump Chris right on his head, and Pat didn't want, and Chris didn't want anything else, and that showed like elite explosion and flexibility and just nastiness. And I remember Coach Meyer asked me, he said, you think offline's gonna be really good? And I was like, yeah, I do. I really believe that kid's got what it takes. And this was a kid that Urban was ready to flush down the toilet, because, you know, Pat had an incident in the offseason. It was really, you know, it wasn't bad, but it was bad enough. Urban was already, like, if you're already kind of a 3-star Ohio kid, and Urban, you know, it's like you have like one life. You weren't a cat that had 9 lives. You were like a cat that had one life. So, you know, Pat got left off the 105 coming in his freshman year, which is something that never happens to scholarship guys. He had a surgery on his on his back. So he was at death's door kind of before he even started. And then that kid just fought and worked, and he was a kid that, you know, he missed all of camp because he was recovering from surgery. I was meeting with him during my lunch break, which, you know, I didn't really have a lunch break. I had like a 30-minute break where I would go with him and do the install in a separate room, because he wasn't even allowed to be in our meetings. So that's how little like Urban thought of that guy when he first got there. So like, I mean, you know, it was a long climb to the top of, you know, becoming a consensus All-American, and, you know, winning the Remington, and, you know, kind of all the really cool stuff that he achieved, you know, throughout his career. He's still in the league. I mean, he's having a nice year. Just got his wife pregnant, so congrats. He married Jim Lachey's daughter, so congrats to Pat and Emily. So it's really cool. Like, cause I loved Pat. I always had a real fondness for Pat, and it's really cool to see what he's been able to do in his career. When not a lot of people believed in him, you know, and sometimes the only guy that really matters in terms of belief is you. So like if everybody else doesn't believe in you, as long as Pat believed in Pat, he was going to be straight. So, but yeah, I love watching this kid's tape though. I mean, his defensive highlights are actually longer than his offensive highlights. I'm actually going to rewind it and go back to some of the offensive stuff and break it down a little bit cleaner. But yeah, I think evaluating offensive line is tough because guys, you know, no, there isn't a position where body types change more than offensive line. There's guys that, like Mark Nave has lost like 40 pounds. You know, he looked real jiggly and fat, and he's really worked hard to get a lot of that bad weight off to kind of recalibrate his body. And that's something that a lot of these kids deal with. A lot of these kids, they're young, 7th, 8th grade. They put on a lot of bad weight from bad diet, not working out, and, you know, they're 330, but they're they're 35% body fat. So that doesn't work in college football. And as you get into more high performance training, you realize that it is terrible to carry that kind of weight around because it makes everything way harder to do. Like conditioning is miserable. You know, going to football camps is miserable. You know, coaches kind of look down on, you know, that soft body because it shows a lack of discipline. So he's lost a lot of weight. He's reshaping his body. He's working hard. And then there's kids that are just naturally leaner, like this kid, like David Sanders, who's 250 and he's wiry, but, you know, this kid will be 320 and he'll probably be, you know, 14% body fat and just be a specimen. So it's always cool to see how these kids grow year over year as they progress through weight training. They get more adept at weight training because, you know, a lot of these kids, you got to remember, they start lifting when they're in probably 8th grade or so. You know, if you're a bigger kid, you don't want to lift much earlier than that because you don't want to disrupt your growth plates. But, you know, these kids, they get stronger. Some are in better programs than others in terms of how progressive their weight training is. Like, I was blessed that I was in a fantastic weight program. We had in-school weightlifting at Perry High School, and our weightlifting was no joke. Urban Meyer said he'd never seen anything like how hard we worked out during our 40-minute it was kind of like we had like gym for every single semester, even though we only got credit for it for one semester out of the whole time we were in high school. But our high school coach did not screw around, and it was great for me because I got to reap all the rewards of the hard work. And I just assumed everybody worked like that, but not everybody does. Nevada, you know, as we get a little closer to wrapping this thing up, what do you want out of this offensive line this spring? I think this is something that, you know, people are really, they're nervous about corners. They're nervous about O-line. I think that we're getting a lot of good tackles to come visit, which is great. Yeah, we got to get some of them committed. But, you know, again, I'm like you. I have no worries on the O-line. I think the O-line's going to be fine. But what would be a good, solid spring showing for the offensive line? Would it be to get the starters kind of filled out? Would it be to get some guys rotated in? What would be your prognosis for a successful spring?
Well, I think what I'm going to be really watching is can we pass block? Because
Yeah.
we'll be able to run block. We'll be able to run block, and the question is, can we protect the quarterback? Can we keep the quarterback upright? Can we give him some time? Because that's really the only way that this OSU offense is going to, have difficulties come the fall. So I'm just going to be watching. Do we have 5 guys out there that have, and that have any type of cohesion that can kind of can protect the edge? That it's not just a jailbreak every time. That we don't just look stiff and pylons out there where our defensive guys are running through like turnstiles. So if we can pass protect in the spring, this fall is going to be every bit as good as we think it's going to be. That's going to be the key indicator for me. That's going to be the key metric. And I think they're going to put on a great show. I've said it before. I think it's going to be 10, 11 guys deep in terms of this group. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that are going to be participating, a lot of guys that are going to be contributing, a lot of guys that are going to be flashy on the offensive line. And I think it's going to be a heck of a battle to see who's going to be the starting 5. So I think Fry's got his work cut out for him. And all the while along parallel tracks, we're hoping that someday Justin Fry lands a 5-star offensive lineman like Stud used to do with regularity. So if Fry gonna fry, and Fry gonna bring home the bacon, Fry's gonna fry it up and bring us a #1 kid in America. It starts on April 14th or 15th or whatever that weekend is with the spring game, and he's got his shot this big stud out of North Carolina. So let's get her done.
All right, Nevada, here we go. Dave Rice, this is the question. This is one of the ones I put on the tee for you. He says, we haven't been able to run block and short yardage and goal line in at least 2 seasons. Why is that, Nevada?
Because we run zone read action with a quarterback who never keeps. So we slow the play down at the mesh point, and we have a quarterback who's never a threat to keep the ball, and that's why we struggle. Singular reason. Predictability by formation, predictability by down and distance, predictability with a quarterback that doesn't present any type of running threat that will kill you in short yardage and in the red zone. Period. End. Easy fix.
Yeah, it's essentially, it'd be like if we ran play action pass and we never ran the ball ever. It's like when we run play action on 3rd and 25 or something. They know we're not going to run the ball, but we still do the little zone read play fake. But yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. I mean, you got to remember back in the olden days, and I'm not saying what's right or wrong or indifferent or whatever, but back in the olden days of trestle ball with Greg Krenzel and Troy and these guys, the zone read didn't exist back then. So when you ran plays, everybody had to be blocked. What changed everything is the zone read, where instead of blocking a backside defensive end or linebacker, you would read them. So if the guy crashes down and takes the running back, you pull it as the quarterback. And if he stays static, which is basically where he just kind of stands there, you hand it to the running back and he runs in the A gap. So, what teams do now that they realize that we never, ever run the quarterback is they just crash every time. So it's like a free tackle for loss 90% of the time, unless the guy's just a skunk and he's too slow to get there, or our guy's just a bull and he can break an arm tackle. But, when you play a good team, they figure out eventually, hey, we're never going to actually run the quarterback. So, again, if you try to do trickery and that kind of thing, and you never actually, do the opposite of handing the ball, which is keeping it with the quarterback, eventually teams figure that out. And so that's why we run some of the stuff in short yardage and it's just putrid because, there's a free hitter, essentially because we, when we have a pull read, we never pull the ball because it's probably a called give. And, heaven forbid a quarterback ever takes a hit, because they're made out of porcelain. But, I don't know. I watched like what Justin Fields did in the NFL. Justin Fields should have been a Pro Bowler this year. He was unbelievable. And it was all because he ran the ball. He carried Chicago, which is a terrible team. They literally had the worst record in the NFL, the worst skill, the worst O-line, the worst infrastructure. And they actually beat good teams because Justin Fields is just that good. They beat the San Francisco 49ers, who had the best defense in the entire NFL because of Justin Fields' legs. So, when you get down to, you go to the big house, you go at Wisconsin, when you really need it, that's what gets it for you. Like I lived through, I had Terrell Pryor in 2010 when I was a quality control coach there. Terrell beat Iowa with his legs, you know, I mean, like it was a miracle. You know, if Terrell doesn't scramble, we have no chance. You know, so when everything's covered, everything's, you know, sticky, then, you know, that run is still there. Like, I mean, you look at again, we're watching some of these defensive plays from David Sanders, but you know, the play where CJ had his long scramble for 30-ish yards, everybody was covered. I mean, there wasn't a foot of separation by any of our receivers, including Emeka, Julian. You know, all the other receivers were covered, and there was just a massive amount of grass in the middle of the field, and you're just like, holy cow! Like, thank God he finally ran. So that's something that we're gonna have to do. What other questions we got? Sue, you got anything? Dave, you got anything? We've got a pretty good crew on tonight. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. Last week, winter conditioning, I got some really good feedback from the guys. You know, some of my guys are getting a little skinnier. They're a little fat last year, a little heavy last year, a little heavy footed. So some of our defensive front guys are down significant amounts of weight just because they want to be quicker. They want to be able to get off the ball a little bit better. So look for that. It's going to be interesting because I think that JT, especially, and Jack, they're really focused on pass rush because they know if they want to play in the league and they want to play defensive end in the league, they got to up that sack total a little bit. So they're going to get after it in the spring. And that's the matchup I'm excited for is these tackles versus two ends that, again, those ends are used to going against Paris and Dewan, and now they're going to be going against Zen Mikulski and Josh Fryer. So it's going to be interesting to see, you know, can the offense function with those guys? Can our tackles step up and block those guys? It'll be fascinating, in my opinion. Anything else, Nevada? We got here we go. We got some Jaden Davis, Julian saying Air Noland. I'll take this one just because I got some intel on this. I think it's gonna be Jaden Davis. I mean, I know that sounds crazy because we we basically curbed him and left him at the altar last year for I'll never forget the Dylan Raiola week when leading up to that spring game when I talked to the Raiolas and they said they're not coming for the spring game. Bill Green reported that they were coming for the spring game. I called the Raiolas. They said, "Oh, now we are coming to the spring game." This is like over the course of 24 hours, they did a complete 180. And it was, like I said, it was kind of like the OK Corral, where all of a sudden Jane Davis is showing up, the Raiolas are showing up. It's going to be a rumble in the jungle, like between the two of them, to see who gets the offer and see who can commit the fastest to Ryan Day. And the Raiolas basically said, "Hey, we're coming to commit," silently, but tell Jaden Davis to go fly a kite, and they did. So the Raiolas show up, they commit silently, and then they do the. They tell Jaden Davis to buzz off. And Jaden Davis was the guy that we thought we were going to get all along. So now, Dylan Raiola, buzzes off and he doesn't even have an offer from us anymore. And now we're trying to get back in with Jaden Davis. I think plan C is probably Air. Julian saying is just an interesting one just because, he's a guy that, Bam already has two quarterbacks in the class before him. Could be the lost guy. Could be a guy that gets flipped. But no, I think Jaden Davis at this point's in the lead to be the quarterback. And again, we have a long way to go before signing day, and a lot of things can happen. And based on how crazy it was with, this time last year, Dylan Raiola was trending towards being a Buckeye, and then spring game obviously commits to Ryan Day. So it's crazy. Nevada, you've been around some crazy recruiting stuff. Where does the Dylan Raiola saga rank amongst like the kind of the craziest of being Mr. Buckeye, being Mr. Class Leader, and then pulling the e-brake and throwing the parachute and jumping out of the plane kind of in the middle of the night? Where does that rank for you?
I mean, honestly, it's. I'm not even sure it's in the top 5 of the last few years, man. I mean, think about what we've had. We've had Quinn Ewers, the number one player, the highest rated player of all time, reclassify, come to Ohio State, get left off the travel squad. They sent him at home. Who was the legendary quarterback that they traveled ahead of him? I'm trying to think of the name.
Jagger LaRoe, who went and played for Coach Prime at Jackson State last year. Yeah, Jagger LaRoe.
They travel him and I mean the Quinn Ewers thing was absolutely nutty, and I mean Dylan's thing is not even. It was kind of good. It was kind of good, but I mean, look, I don't think Dylan Raiola is that good. I'll say it. Everybody else is going to dance around. I didn't think he was that great when they offered him, but everybody was excited and everybody's jumping up and down. So you're like, hey, okay, maybe I'm missing something. But you know, I think they got shut out in the championship game in Arizona this year, or there's only scored 7 points. Or I mean, they weren't good. And when you're the number one player in America, you would hope you could win the Arizona championship or at least put up some points. So yeah, I didn't think he was all that. I didn't think he was all that at the time. But hey, now we're back to Jaden Davis, and if it's not Jaden, then we'll go all in on Air and be happy with the nickname.
Air. Yeah, I actually met Air and saw Air. He was down at the South Florida Express tournament. He didn't play the day I was there for some reason, and the quarterback they had stunk. So I wasn't sure why Air wasn't playing or whatever, but he was there, and I mean he was throwing the ball with JJ, and he's a lefty, which is different. I mean I don't think we've had a lefty quarterback since Belisari, but he can throw the crap out of the ball. I mean you can hear the ball go by you when he throws it because he throws it so hard. And it was funny because like I was standing talking to JJ, and Air's like, hey, you want to play catch? He's talking to JJ, obviously, not me. And they start playing catch, and like the first ball is like a missile, and I'm like, Jesus! It wasn't like some warm up soft toss. It was like, let me see if I can throw it through your skull. And JJ's funny because everything he catches is just I mean, there's no bobble, there's nothing, but the guy's got an absolute cannon. Air does. So it's going to be interesting to see what we do at quarterback. Yeah, the viewers not traveling that's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I'm like, this kid gives up his senior year and you leave him at the Griff so he can sit in his apartment after he gave up kind of everything. So that was bizarre because I figured, if there's one thing you should do with a kid like Quinn Ewers, if he reclassifies and he's supposed to be the future and all this, like, you got to take him on these trips, man, and you got to help him learn the offense and get him in walkthroughs and get him involved with the team. And, because not all kids are created equal. Like, if a kid is like a 5-star superstar quarterback, like, you got to keep him engaged. You can't leave him at home. You can't say, hey, maybe next trip, especially when you're taking Jagger LaRue, which is, a kid that transferred out anyways. So, I don't know. Like, again, it is what it is. It doesn't matter. It's either here or there.
No, but Kirk, that was the great thing about it because the pundits at the time were like, well, we want to reward the guys that are real Buckeyes with the trip, and I'm like, Jagger LaRue transferred anyway, man. He's not like some guy that was like Joey Buckeye that was there for all these years. We really loved. Like they took Jagger LaRue, left yours at home, and then they're shocked when they leave him, and then they try to trash the kid on the way out. So yeah, that was the craziest story. As far as I'm concerned for OSU, that was not a good moment for Ohio State. But we'll move on and look forward and on to better days. We'll have a Jagger LaRue appreciation day sometime.
Oh my God, yeah, it was. I'll always shake my head at that one because again, like, what's the reward if you're a kid? Like, here's your reward: you get to be on the travel squad to go to Piscataway and go stand there for the Rutgers game. Like when I redshirted my freshman year, I didn't want to travel. Like, I didn't even want to go to the games because, like, when I know I wasn't going to play, like, you only go to the home games when you're redshirted, but it's like you go there, you get dressed, you warm up, and you stand there for 3 hours, and you just feel like a bum because you have no chance of getting in. This is the old days where if you redshirted, you weren't going to play a single play. So now it's different because now these kids can play up to 4 games and still retain their redshirt eligibility. But, like, when I redshirted, you weren't getting in a game. So it's like after, you were an ERW. An ERW. That's what Bill Belichick called him. You'd eat, you'd ride, and then you'd warm up. And that was it. That was the extent of your day. So, the ERWs are the guys that, they're never going to play. They eat the team meal. They ride the bus over. They warm up for the game. And that's it. And then they just stand there until after the game. And then they shower and they go home and do whatever. But my freshman year, Tim Schaefer got busted for doing something stupid, and they took him off the travel squad, and they traveled me, even though I was redshirted, just as a punishment. And I was like, man, I don't want to travel because, like, I could hang out in my room and play Xbox or whatever. So if I'm not going to play in the game, I'm not really that engaged. And when you go to, to the hotel, you got to take the test, and you got to do, like, all this extra stuff. I'm like, because traveling sucks. You gotta go through all the walkthroughs, all the meetings. Like if you don't travel, you just show up to the game and eat a hot dog on the way in, and you're good. But
Yeah, but you just made a great point though, and it's really the fact now. I still remember the famous Sammy Maldonado one where he's out there begging to get put in the game, and they put him in it, and he plays one play, runs for a touchdown or whatever it was, and that burned his red shirt for the entire year. And nowadays you can play these games and not lose the year, and that's a radical change, and that changes everything in terms of the approach. And so maybe by your theory, maybe they were doing Quinn a favor by leaving him at home. It was actually a way of rewarding him by leaving him at home, and they were punishing Jagger LaRue by bringing him. So it's kind of a spy versus spy, 4-dimensional chess stuff that Ryan Day's doing. Man, that was pretty clever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like for me, I just it was weird. Like I mean, I wouldn't want to go to Piscataway, but yeah, this is funny. So Alva Coakley, I like this. Your redshirt year, all you want to do is sit in the dorm and study. And I mean, honestly, like my redshirt year, I didn't care because like I know I wasn't playing the game, so I would like lift super heavy. I would do stuff I would never do if I was playing the games. Like I'd be lifting like crazy on Friday and Saturday morning and Sunday. I'd lift like like Hercules. And when you're in season playing football normally, like you get like good workouts, but you're not like killing yourself just because your body has to be healthy enough to practice. So if you're sore and you're all pumped up from lifting too much, like that's not good. But that first year, man, I was cranking it out, and because I wanted to play, I would go running late night. Like I'd leave the dorm room, and I had like there was this chick that I was friends with, and we'd go run around campus, like literally put on our headsets and go get some miles in because I didn't have to play, so I didn't care. I'd stay up late and just do stupid stuff because when you're not playing, everything changes. Now when you play, it's like you go to bed early, you eat right. You're supposed to. I mean, I did because I was obsessed with making sure that I had as much energy as I could because football is a very draining game, and to not do it with energy is tough. Sue, what are you doing, my boy Quinn? Sue says they left yours at home to let him know you ain't all that, buddy, and keep reading the playbook. My thing is like they should have taken him to Piscataway to teach him the playbook because you got to understand on these road trips, like you get in to Piscataway or wherever they sit out for Rutgers, and it's like you have the team meal, and then you sit there and you watch movies and you have chapel and test review and all this stuff. But that whole time, instead of watching the movie or screwing around in your room, like Corey Dennis could have had Quinn and he could have been tutoring him. And I would do that with any young quarterback. I would take him on the road and make him walk through stuff with Ryan Day, get him used to the environment. Like, I mean, Trust used to travel Justin Zwick and Troy when they were freshmen. I think in 03, they both went up to Michigan just so they could experience the road environment, even though they were, they weren't going to play, or they were like the number 3 and 4 quarterbacks behind Craig and Scotty Mack. But I think, when I was in the league and I was a young player, when you go and you're with a team, like they're trying to teach you the playbook. So you'd meet with the O-line coach during the time where everybody else is just chilling out in the hotel watching movies or watching whatever college football games are on that Saturday night because you play on Sundays. So it's I think it's an invaluable time where you can get with some of the young linemen, you can get with some of the guys that maybe aren't as sure about the playbook or sure about their assignments, and you can really grind them. We used to do that all the time. Like we'd get the young O-linemen together, and then we'd have the veterans come in and we'd go through the tests. But the young guys, we'd make them go through the tests with us to make sure they knew their assignments. So I think it's one of those things. You just you got to maximize your time because there's no 20-hour rule when you go on the road. I mean, the clock turns off as soon as it's competition weekend. So from Friday to Sunday or Saturday night when you land, like there's no 20-hour rule. So you can meet 1,000 times if you want to over 2 days. So that's something a little different. Well, Nevada, we've watched this kid's film. He's a fantastic player. I really love watching his athleticism. I love him on defense too. I mean, his defensive highlights are fantastic. But we're grinding down into spring ball. Buckeye Scoop is exceptionally crazy right now. You broke down some of the analytical stuff we're doing. Got a great report coming on some of the guys that were big winners in winter conditioning. We'll have that up in the next couple of days. Any final stuff? Appreciate you guys tuning in. This is a nice audience tonight. So, any closing stuff as we count down? We're 1 week out from spring ball tomorrow, so it's gonna be here before we know it.
No, OSU's just had a very, very, very productive winter, and there's been some pretty radical body transformations from some guys that are going to lead the first guy off the bus group. So be watching for that the next couple of days. But yeah, some guys have had some big winters, poised to have some big springs, and into the 2023 season, it's like I said, been a very, very good winter for Ohio State, and that usually bodes well for the upcoming season. So I can't wait.
I'm telling you, man, it's now or never for Jaden Ballard. I know we said it all ball practice, but my God, like, I mean, when you have Emeka and Julian out and you're the guy who's by far the oldest guy on the field, you're going to be running with the ones the entire spring. It is time for him to go. You know, with the amount of speed he has and the fact that he's the fastest guy on the team, you know, which should be terrifying to cornerbacks. And, you know, Kyle McCord's got a big arm, man. If I'm Jaden, I'm not leaving Kyle McCord's side because you know, you have that opportunity to build chemistry, potentially move ahead of Julian Fleming and be the Z receiver. I'd do everything I could just because I think that Jaden has more ability than Julian, which is crazy because Julian was the number one receiver in the country a few years ago, but he doesn't have the jets that Jaden does. So I think it's going to be a very interesting spring. You know, I think Julian really kind of needed this spring and the fact that he's dinged up and he's going to miss spring. I don't think it's a death knell because he obviously finished the year as the number 3 receiver, but Jaden Ballard's got a big opportunity, man, with Emeka and you know, Marvin will be limited because he's, you know, the best player in the country, so he doesn't need to get, you know, 500 reps during the spring. So I'm sure Ryan will monitor him, but Jaden does. Jaden needs every rep he can get and see if he can get into the rotation. That any guys that you're super excited to hear about in spring, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Carnell Tate, man, wait till you guys see Carnell Tate. Really good, really, really good. I mean, we should probably go back and show some of his high school highlights because he's really, really good, and he's an alpha man. He is leading the pack at Ohio State, and you know, if I'm buying stock, I'm buying Carnell Tate stock.
Yeah, I mean, that's the two guys that we got were Jelani Thurman and Carnell Tate. Those are the two guys that they're not scared of anything. They're eating up these workouts. They act like pros. They don't act like high school kids that are kind of, you know, bright-eyed and nervous. I mean, these guys they're different cats now, and I think that there's a big opportunity for Jelani Thurman, especially the way that he blocks, because he is a nasty blocker. I think he's, you know, as talented of a two-way tight end in terms of blocking and receiving as we've had in 20 years, but he really he pile drives guys in the running game, which I love. And, you know, if you're going to put Cade at wing or if you're going to leave him as the point guy in the 2 tight end look, it's going to be real interesting to see what they do with some of these guys and where they find them at. But yeah, so yeah, I you know, I don't know. I mean, I think Julian is a better blocker. I think honestly, our perimeter blocking is not very good, you know, on our wide receivers. I think that's something that kills our running game right now. Some of these guys are kind of allergic to contact, and you can see it when you watch the coaches film. Some of these guys don't want to get their nails dirty, and I think that's a stark departure from where it was with Urban, because with Urban, he wouldn't have put up with that to the degree that it's going on now. But again, these guys are first-round picks, and they act like first-round picks, and they block like first-round picks. You know, Justin Jefferson's not making $30 million a year to block, so that's kind of why, you know, you put up with it with Marvin and Emeka, you know. But some of these guys that aren't Marvin and Emeka, they need to go in there and knock somebody's block off the way Santonio used to back in the olden days. But no, I think that'll be interesting, Sue. But yeah, I think that something that really kills our long running game is not getting the perimeter blocking like we used to. So that's something that, you know, some of these young receivers that want to get on the field, go knock somebody out. Then all of a sudden you'll be, you know, moving your way up the depth chart. So you got something, Nevada?
Yeah, not just Carnell Tate's like a guy like that. He likes to block, eager blocker, likes to drive guys, and I think that's one of the reasons why he might see some early action. And you know, in last year we didn't see any of those young wide receivers kind of distance themselves. This year, I'm saying Carnell's going to be that guy.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a big spring, and the good thing about the guys being out is Carnell could be with the 2s early, just because You got two of the big dogs out. Marvin will be limited, so it's kind of like the guys that normally would be with the twos are going to be with the ones. The guys that normally are with the threes are going to be with the twos. And when the two quarterbacks are Devin and McCord, and they're rotating between the ones and twos, like Carnell Tate is going to be day one catching balls from Kyle McCord, and normally that's not how it works with a freshman catching balls from the presumptive starter. So I think that'll be fascinating to watch. And I'm excited to see these corners, man. These corners are going to be put to the test, and it's going to be fun to see and hear some of the reports that we get. And I'm excited to see Jack Sawyer and JT at the end. It's time to cut it loose, guys. Year 3, Mike Hall, Tyleek, this crazy, super sophomores, fantastic freshmen. Now it's, just go get the quarterback juniors. I guess I can start some of the J, but I'm excited to see these guys and see them get after the quarterback. So, getting Jaden from Michigan again. Like the thing I keep going back to with the quarterback in 24 is, you're going to be throwing to Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and JJ Smith. So, in Ryan Day's offense with Brian Hartline calling the plays, like I don't know what else you want, in terms of being on like the monorail to first round them, or the bullet train to being a first round pick. Like you got this offense with that talent, and and our running backs are coming in are fantastic too. I mean, I don't know what else you could possibly want. So all right, so we're gonna wrap this thing up. Any final words, Nevada?
Jagger LaRue. That's my final words. That's the last time I'm going to leave with everybody. Jagger LaRue. If we could get Jagger LaRue back to throw to Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and J.J. Smith and the Rogers brothers, then I think even Jagger LaRue could throw for 4,000 yards.
If you had to win a game and it was him or Chug, who are you taking? Ooh.
Man, that's tough. That's tough.
Chug was a legend now.
I'm going to think about that when I get back to you guys next podcast. We'll have an answer on that. But that's a tough one.
Yeah, because Chug, like I used to love when Chug would get in the games. I'd be sitting there, I'd just yell, Chug, and it was just like
he had his one shiny moment. He had a chance, man. He had a chance. Was it the Michigan game or something like that? He came in there. I think he had one play. I think he had one play where he came in and had a chance to throw it, and he didn't get it done, man. Chug almost was a legend, but now he's just a punchline to the Jagger LaRue jokes on a podcast now.
God, he'd have been signing. If you had had that photo of throwing a touchdown in the street, you could have signed that at every gas station opening in Columbus for the next 20 years. What it could have been. So, all right, well, we're going to wrap this thing up. As always, appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Sue. You showed up tonight. Appreciate you guys. As always, giving you crap, Sue. Appreciate all you guys, the regulars, showing up. If you want to know when we are rolling, click that alert button in YouTube, and you'll get a little alert on your phone when we go live. Generally, it's about this time of night. Basketball game tomorrow. Likely, we'll try to get in before the game. So just kind of keep your antenna out for us. Click that like button on your way out. Click subscribe. Again, we appreciate you guys. We love interacting with you guys. You guys are the best. So we love doing this. If you guys enjoy this show, you guys want to do this all the time, BuckeyeScoop.com is the home of myself, Nevada Buck, and the great Bill the Bank Green, the best recruiting guy in the business. He's bringing fire content. Some of the big names Ohio State is taking big swings at right now. Some of these young guys that are interested in Ohio State, he's got a lot of big updates. He's going kind of position by position right now. He'll have big spring game updates for some of the visitors. So super, super content coming on. It's about to get cranked up. So if you guys want to know what's going on in spring practice, BuckeyeScoop.com is your spot, because we are going to have our people at practice, and we can't wait to tell you what is going on there. So we appreciate you guys. As always, thank you guys for tuning into the show. Again, leave a like. It's a huge help for us. Helps us ride that YouTube algorithm wave. So thank you guys. And shout out where you're from in the comments. I want to know where you guys are watching from. So as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I will see you guys all on BuckeyeScoop.com for the best content involving all of Ohio State sports. Appreciate you guys. You guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.